This is our continuing series on Midrash as a psychological backstory to the Bible, and this is entitled Noah, aka Elon Musk, Henry Ford, and the Wright brothers. So when we read the story, we think, perhaps any of you might have seen, I've seen this in Manhattan, perhaps it's in any cities around the US and around the world where there are people holding up signs saying the world is coming to an end. You know, so most people pay no attention. They take one glance and they think, poor pathetic guy, he's crazy. How did he get out of his mental institution? And no one pays any attention. So people have perhaps the conception that that's what's going on in the time of Noah. No one paid any attention. No one, except for his immediate family, went on the ark because they thought he was crazy. But if you think that way, you're disregarding what the text says, and certainly the Medrash, but even the text tells you that something very different is going on. Because how did Noah get his name? So his name, again, it's the Hebrew word Noach, which means comfort, and you see that right in the verse itself, it talks about comfort. It says, and he named him Noah, saying, this one will provide us relief from our work and from the toil of our hands. So right away, you have to understand that, actually, it goes on to say, from the very soil which the Lord cursed. So here you have, the Medrash embellishes this and brings out this point of exactly what is the psychological backstory to this here, to the story of Noah. That is, he was, as I said, Elon Musk and Henry Ford and the Wright brothers. He was the one who technologically revolutionized his generation because he invented farming implements. And also, it seems that the earth was cursed, and now the curse, in honor of Noah, the curse was taken away. So not only was there tremendous yield on the crops because the earth no longer was cursed, but because they were able to farm better, the implementations were excellent, and they didn't have to scratch with their hands. And so he was the technological genius of his generation. He was the go-to person. He was the most famous person. So then I'm trying to wipe out that idea that he was, some crazy person building an ark. People didn't pay any attention. No, he was the most respected person, and everybody wanted to know what he was doing and why he thought this way. So of course now the question is, if this is the case, how come nobody listened? How come nobody joined him? Now, in our next session, we're going to talk about perhaps the guilt that he felt, and perhaps that's why he was, started planting vineyards and ultimately, as you see, got drunk. But for now, there is another possible explanation, and this comes from another Medrash, which helps, again, elaborate the psychological backstory. And there's a story about Abraham, who, as you know, he was Sodom and Gomorrah. He was trying to defend them. And in his discussions with God, he actually accused God of something. He said, back at the time of the flood, people really didn't have a chance there wasn't so much adversity. Things didn't go wrong in life when you did something wrong. If you committed some kind of a crime, there wasn't kind of this kind of reward and punishment system. People didn't feel, wow, something happens to me, I was punished, maybe I should reconsider my ways. It just, that system God had not put in place yet. So everything was going well. If they would commit crimes and there was robbery, the word is Hamas. Interestingly enough, that's what the Bible uses for the word robbery. There was a lot of robbery going on in that generation. That's why the flood happened. In fact, it's a famous question, why later on in the Tower of Babel, when they were fighting against God, why wasn't that generation wiped out? So the answer is, again, the Medrash tells us that God is okay with people challenging him, but God does not like disunity, because people were unified when they were building that Tower of Babel, but here they were disunified and they were fighting each other and robbing from each other. And that is, so again, I'm going back to what we just talked about, that Abraham said that there was no system in place of adversity and things going wrong where you could learn from your ways. Perhaps they did pay attention to Noah, and he told them about the flood, and they had a hard time believing it because nothing ever went wrong. Life was good despite all the crime that was going on. So the psychological backstory is that they did hear Noah's warning, but they were convinced that there were no consequences to their actions, so they chose to ignore him. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe.